Hello, and welcome. Welcome to ER Emotional Response. I have the honor to present to y'all our guest speaker today, who also is a fellow podcaster, who also is a professional, I would call her a professional life coach. She is grooming people to have more flourishing relationships, more deeper understanding, and being the role of a mother and a father. And she has done a case study that I know that will change so many other people's lives. And at the beginning probably of her study, she didn't see it as I would all, be honored to have her come and speak on this podcast. But now I have the honor of presenting to you our guest speaker. I'll let her speak. Okay, you had Melissa Walker. Meet ER listeners. ER listeners, meet Melissa Walker. Okay.
Awesome. It's nice to be here. Nice to be chatting with you again. I know we had a great conversation last time we chatted, and it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I loved how you introduced me through my case study, being in fact that in the last 5 years, I've been really on a journey in my own relationships. And it kind of made me, wonder why people do things that they do instead of just kind of running away from relationships, because I was really good at that. When somebody would annoy me, I would just say, get lost and be alone, because I was comfortable alone. But with this relationship, this case study, we'll call it, it's taught me to really think before I react, I think is the biggest thing, and to, I guess, look into things rather than just run away from it. So I don't know if that's what you call love, maybe real love, true love. When you kind of are willing to learn why your partner does what your partner does, instead of saying he's just crazy and walking away.
So the title of your case study is? Well, I call it case study.
I have, yes, I don't really have a title for it, so to speak, but what I did do is I wrote an ebook about it, and it was forgive each other instead of, let's just heal each other. I think it was called Don't Fight Each Other, Forgive Each Other. I should have better researched that. I write so much that it's hard for me to keep track of it, because I'm just constantly writing. And I've got quite a few ebooks, which I think are on my website, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's Heal Each Other, Don't Hurt Each Other. That's what it's called.
Okay.
So I think that would be a great name for the case study as well, because it's really about when it came to my partner, the biggest issue we had, and we still have a little bit because we're both learning how to deal with it, is defensiveness. And every time I would try to convey my feelings, he would just get on total defense and start blaming me for my feelings, which left me feeling confused because nothing ever got solved, and usually he would just end up walking away, and I just had to suck it up. And at first it was like, I just want to run away from this guy, but I had 2 children with him, so that my opinion is not an option at the moment. I have to fix it, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it was in that moment that I was like, okay, why does he do this? Why? And then I realized, after lots and lots of reading and researching and looking up defensiveness, is that defensiveness is actually your brain going into fight or flight mode. So if how I convey my feelings to him makes him feel attacked for whatever reason, then he's going to be defensive. And some people will say defensiveness is guilt, right?
Right.
Because if I'm saying I don't feel you're one of our biggest things is you're on your phone too much. And it drives me crazy because it takes away time from the kids. And so he doesn't hear you're on your phone too much. He hears you're a horrible father because you're on your phone too much. And so he goes into, defense mode because he's not a horrible father, and nobody wants to think of themselves as a horrible parent, right?
Right.
So now that I've learned this, I'm like, okay, I have to approach it differently. I have to not make him feel attacked. And I think a lot of us don't think about how we kind of approach people. And I think women especially, I know myself for sure, and my kids and people I know, is a lot of the time instead of saying something in the moment, we'll hold on to it and we'll build up like a anger, and then all of a sudden everything just blows up and you're like, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And you are actually attacking them, right?
Right.
So I think it's looking at it from maybe their perspective, why are they being defensive, can kind of make you understand what's going on.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's amazing how you brought up like the fact that it gets lost in translation, your delivery versus their interpretation.
Yeah. And he's not hearing, and the reason I'm saying anything is because, I want him to be a good role model for the kids. I want him to have that time with them because I know how fast it goes with the kids. So it's like, and that's the other thing about me is I have 4 kids. My oldest 2 are 21 and 19, and then my youngest 2 are 2 and 5. So I've done the whole kid thing, and I know how fast they grow up and they move out because my oldest 2 have moved out. And so in my heart, I just want what's best for him and the kids. I'm not attacking him. I'm not saying he's a bad father at all, but he's not hearing me in that way. And in that moment, what I've realized is the best thing to do is if he gets a little bit defensive, I just walk away from it. And I don't antagonize him because a lot of the time that'll just feed into it, and then he'll start like saying horrible, mean things, and it's not even him talking. It's this defensive rush that his brain has ultimately gone into.
Wow.
So until I knew the actual science behind it, I was like, this guy's crazy. Like the one time he said to me that he didn't love me anymore, and he realized a long time he didn't. And I was like, what? We just got married a year ago. Like, what? and it hurt. Right. And then it left me wondering, like, did he mean that? And until I found out that they're not even rationalizing what's going on in their head, now I understand what happened. Like, he just was in his survival mode.
Wow. Now, when you say you found out, how did you find out? Through the study? As I was kind of delving into the whole topic of defensiveness, I ran across a video on YouTube, I believe, because that when I do that, I'll just kind of binge watch a whole bunch of stuff. So to be honest with you, I don't know exactly which video it was, but it explained it perfectly how the chemicals work when you go into this fight or flight mode, and you're just not using your rational brain, your logical brain. So if this happens and the one person walks away, then that person can get back into their rational thinking, right? Rather than just keep going on with it. Right.
Because then it could lead to even physical abuse, right? If it went too far.
Right. So as just from your study, how do you stop the rational thinking from going too far?
I think the first sign would be when they start defending something. Do you know what I mean? Like if you, let's just say, for example, if my husband forgets to take the garbage out in the morning, and when he comes home, the first thing I say to him is, why didn't you take the garbage out in the morning? I had to deal with it. I had to take it out there, blah, 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 blah. And if he looks at me and says, you could have took the garbage out, there's like a defensive, I was busy, I was doing this, then that's when you want to kind of step back. And, you can just step back by saying, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to attack you, because that's the other thing I've learned is when he gets into that mode, I'll just say, like, stop, I'm not really attacking you, so I don't want you to feel that way. And when I think about it in my own eyes, it's like I always want people to understand how I'm feeling, and nobody does. Nobody says, I understand you feel sad or whatever, but if somebody acknowledged that in me, I'd be like, whoa, thank you, and I think that's a big part of working with each other and healing each other rather than hurting each other and just going back and forth, right?
Right. That takes a big swallow of dethroning your label, almost to say, regardless, because of our sense of entitlement says, well, because I am X, Y, and Z to him, I could say X, Y, and Z, but you almost have to step outside of yourself and say, regardless of my label, let me try to preserve the relationship instead of my title.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just makes for more just healthy relationships. And if you can be aware of what you're doing, then a lot of the times their behavior will kind of follow suit, right? Like, you don't even have to do anything. But because I know for me, it's been huge. Like, even my husband has noticed, he says, since you've been doing this relationship stuff, he's like, our relationship is a lot better. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, because I was constantly, I would not say anything for a long time, not be up and up and say what's on my mind and just get angry and then blurt out all in, one night that he's just a horrible person, and that's not good either. So I think we have to really be aware of, how we approach people, especially if they're defensive. So you have to kind of come up with, for me, like in the example of the whole garbage thing, if I'm going to take the energy to bitch about the garbage, I'm going to use that energy and just put it in the garbage myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think some things are worth fighting over and some things aren't. So I'd kind of look at there must be more. If you're complaining about the garbage, then that's just like a small piece of what's going on, right?
Right. Nah, I totally agree. Be a solution instead of a problem to the problem.
Exactly. And I mean, if it's that bad, then, there's always the choice to walk away from it too, if it's not healthy. I think a person should try to work through things, but there's the odd occasion that the other person doesn't want to work through things.
Wow.
And sometimes they don't. Go ahead.
No, I'm listening. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah, sometimes they don't. It just doesn't work, Like, I don't know. I think I'm a firm believer, because I'm a bit spiritual as well. So I'm a firm believer that everybody we meet has something to teach us about ourselves. And, what we like and what we don't like and this and that. And I think so many of us